Hello, True Health Seeker. Welcome to another exciting episode of the Learn True Health podcast. You're going to love today's interview with cardiologist Dr. Joel Kahn. He's a very unique cardiologist. He's been a plant-based vegan for over 42 years, and he has this unique perspective on the body. He believes the body has an amazing ability to heal itself, and we just need to support it with the right diet, nutrients, lifestyle, and that we can support the body's ability to heal and prevent disease. And isn't that wonderful? Don't you want a doctor that believes that you can be healthy? He shares a lot of great information today. We talk a lot about using heat therapy and the different spectrums of light to help the body heal. And he says so much in such a short period of time. There's so many details. He opened up so many rabbit holes that I know listeners are going to think to themselves, man, I need to get a pen. I got to write that down. And I want to let you know that we actually transcribe our interviews. We've been doing that for the last few months. We hired two wonderful transcriptionists, and we have been transcribing all of the interviews. So a shout out, big shout out, thank you to the transcriptionists who help us to transcribe, because all the listeners really love going to learntruehealth.com, and then you can click on the episode. And I know that everyone's been loving being able to have access to all the transcripts, so that when a guest shares so much wonderful information, like telling us about what books we should read and what supplements we should try, or what lifestyle habits, tips, and tricks we should try, we want all the details. And instead of having to listen to the episode 2 or 3 times, you can go to the transcript and find exactly what the doctor said, which is really exciting. So that is my gift to you, the listener, so that you can make sure that you take all this information and help to transform your life and the health of your whole family and everyone you love. So make sure that you take advantage of our transcripts by going to learntruehealth.com. Now, in this episode, we mentioned 3 things, so I want to make sure that I cover it in the intro. A lot of the discussion is about sauna therapy, specifically using Sunlighten. Sunlighten is the only company I have found, and I have looked, that is ultra low EMF, that is non-toxic, and that uses the full spectrum, near, mid, and far infrared. So they're absolutely wonderful. I highly recommend calling Sunlighten and talking to them about their different systems. They have what's called the solo system, which is portable. So you don't need, if you don't have a lot of space, and you can just tuck it away under the bed or tuck it away, in the closet when you're not using it. That's a really great solution for those who don't want the bigger sauna, which I have the big one, the wooden one, and I love it. Basically, 2 people can fit in it. It's kind of like having a TARDIS, if for those who know Doctor Who. It does not look very big, but 2 people can fit in it, which is really cool. And it has the full spectrum of near, mid, and far infrared. And we get a little bit into that in the show today, the benefits of those different spectrums. If you want to learn more specifically about Sunlighten, I did 2 interviews, one with the co-founder and one with their manager, Alicia. So Connie Zach being the founder. You can go to learntruehealth.com and you can search in the search bar for Sunlighten or for sauna and find those episodes and enjoy learning more about why I specifically love Sunlighten as a company when it comes to doing sauna therapy versus all the other companies out there. I'm really sold. I've really enjoyed my sauna, and I've gotten a lot of great health benefits. It's helped me with my detox tremendously. It's helped me with my liver. I had liver problems, and it really helped me with that, helped me with my weight loss. So I feel it is high quality and very effective. So that's Sunlighten. Give them a call. They give our listeners a great deal. They give us free shipping, and they also throw in something else that's really cool. And the special kind of keeps changing just depending on what's going on in the office there. But they always give the listeners a really great discount or a really great special. So make sure that you mention Learn True Health with Ashley James so that you get our listener special. Now, we mentioned 2 other things. One is the magnesium soak. You have heard me rave about it over and over again, and I love soaking in magnesium while in my sauna. You only need a few cups of water in like a foot basin, And it is so wonderful. It opens up all the circulation. It really aids in the detoxification and feeding your liver all those wonderful nutrients it needs to help you with detoxification. So it's a great 1-2 punch. And then the third thing are the energy bits, actually specifically the recovery bits, which is chlorella. Chlorella is an algae that chelates heavy metals. And so that's wonderful to eat before you get in the sauna because it aids in binding to the heavy metals and releasing them from our body. It also helps with melatonin production so that it actually aids in deeper sleep. And I've done about 5 interviews, I think, on the energy bits. So you can type algae into the search function in learntoyourhealth.com to be able to listen to those episodes where we talk about spirulina and chlorella and all of their health benefits. And it's just wonderful. You can go to energybits.com and use coupon code LTH to get 20% off. And make sure that you grab a bag of the energy bits for your daytime energy. They're wonderful. They're spirulina. They actually taste really good compared to all the other spirulinas out there. They don't have any of the lead or heavy metals that other companies have been known to have because Energy Bits does very rigorous testing and they have a pure source, a pure water source when they grow their algae. So lots of great information that you can learn by going to learntrout.com and typing in algae and listening to those episodes. But just try it and see how you feel. Buy a bag of Energy Bits, buy a bag of Recovery Bits, and Recovery Bits is for the detoxification. Energy Bits is for energy, and they don't have any caffeine. It's just all algae, but it delivers to the body all the nutrients that it needs to make energy and support hormone health, and I could go on and on. So you can check out those interviews, but those are the 3 things that we had mentioned in the episode, and I wanted to let you know that all 3 of those things you can get a listener discount for. So to get the magnesium soak, you go to livingthegoodlifenaturally.com and type in the coupon code LTH at checkout. Energy Bits is energybits.com and type in the coupon code LTH at checkout. And then for your listener discount for Sunlighten, call them up, talk to one of their wonderful salespeople, and mention Learn True Health with Ashley James for the listener discount. And if you have any questions about any of these, because I use them all the time, and my whole family actually, we soak in magnesium, we eat the energy bits and the recovery bits, and we sweat in our sauna, in our Sunlighten sauna. And so if you guys have any questions for me and my experience, please email me, support@learntruehealth.com. I'd love to hear from you. Excellent. Enjoy today's episode and have yourself a wonderful rest of your day. Welcome to the Learn True Health podcast. I'm your host, Ashley James. This is episode 383. I am so excited for today's interview. We have with us Dr. Joel Kahn. He's an amazing cardiologist, but even more than cardiology, because I've dived into your interviews and some videos. You were kind of going up against Joe Rogan in a very polite interview. I was waiting for the gloves to come off. It's very interesting to be a plant-based cardiologist and help people to reverse disease naturally with natural medicine, with food, because we can heal the body with food, and that you are surprisingly an expert in so many of these fields. Some of my listeners, when I told them I was interviewing you, said, I love him. I love his podcast. And so I started listening to your podcast, and it's amazing just how much you read and how much you share with the listeners. So I definitely recommend listeners check out Dr. Joel Kahn's podcast. It's such a pleasure to have you here today.
Well, thank you. That is really a nice and sincere, little different than the standard credential introduction. And that's pretty cool. Yeah, I call it a PCast, a little bit different than yours. I would never have stayed doing podcasts for 2.5 years if I was taking long periods to interview people. So I just talk for 20 minutes. I teach on some subject. I call it a PCast. It's like a P in the pod, as you know from listening. But anyways, enough about that. But at age 60, I have this insane hunger to learn what isn't woo as opposed to science. And that can be really tough sometimes if we can acknowledge that there's woo-woo advice out there all over the place.
I like that you brought up your age, because if listeners go and check out some of your videos, they're going to look at a young man who looks about 40, who is incredibly handsome, has tons of energy, and looks like he could like win a boxing match against anyone. Like, you just look so good. And then when you said you're 60, I'm like, I really don't believe it. And so that's the power, though, of the whole food plant-based diet, is we actually become more energetic and look younger and have less disease.
Number one, you're smothering me with kindness. I just told you before we went on, I'm going to be out in Seattle for a high-level medical conference in a few weeks. Now we're going to have to find a wonderful plant restaurant and go celebrate with your husband and all that. But I actually adopted a plant diet at age 18. It wasn't a master plan. It wasn't a time that we had Veggie Grill and Beyond Meat and all the movement that's going on now, good and bad. It was a college reaction to horrible food and a good salad bar. But that was the last burger, chicken, piece of turkey I ate was 1977. So, every inch of artery and other crucial parts of my body have been bathed in broccoli and cauliflower and arugula for a very long time. And I'm grateful that was a, kind of a quirk and kind of a twist of fate that in a cardiology career couldn't have been better planned if I had had the insight, but it wasn't insight. It was just a quick little college dorm survival play that I just never went back on.
I had a friend in college who went raw vegan because he didn't have a fridge. So he just bought a bunch of fruit like apples and basically lived on it. And it turned out made him incredibly healthy. And I was like, whoa, that's a really interesting survival mechanism. Oh, at what point in your career as a cardiologist did you realize that how you were eating was the optimal diet for heart health?
Yeah, it didn't take long. I actually got into a quick little program at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor where I actually was accepted to med school at 17 or 18 and began some medical courses that early. But, and I was eating plants. I didn't talk much about it because there wasn't really a platform and I didn't know it was a therapy. If I had dug a little deeper, but I had no Sherpa to guide me, I could have found Nathan Pritikin in the 60s and 70s. I could have found even a couple older pioneers that I now know and study and respect. But I started practicing cardiology. I was like this animal in the cath lab. You're having a heart attack, you're having chest pain, I have your balloon, I have your aggressive therapy 7 days a week. And 3 weeks after that, Dr. Dean Ornish, one of the most eminent and deserving of appreciation lifestyle medicine doctors, published a paper. And I mean, I'm 3 weeks, I'm this guy that the answer to heart disease is, procedures and balloons. And he puts out data that says you can actually halt and reverse heart disease with a lifestyle that was centered on whole food plant-based, and added to it things I love, fitness and mind-body and yoga and socialization. And I said, wow, so I've literally taught thousands of patients every month of my career since I began. And it's all serendipity. I'm just very fortunate, and I am proud to say I kind of grew up in this movement, but, it wasn't exactly perfect insight. I didn't have a psychic tell me to do these things. It just played out well. I could have, read a paper about bacon and I would have been just, messed up for the rest of my career. But
right.
I invested well in the plant-based movement in terms of energy and personal health.
Well, and it shows you're now, is it 42 or 43 years that you've now been a vegan? And I mean, I am blown away, but there's the evidence for you. If we eat a whole food plant-based diet, the way down the road, we're going to look younger, feel younger. And there's so much science now showing that it prevents and reverses disease. So you love diving into all these different topics, and we have some questions from the listeners that we'll get to in a little bit, but I wanted to dive into this topic of saunas and infrared and red light, because Sunlight and Sauna, actually, Alicia at Sunlighten is the one that hooked us up for this interview, and she said that you are an amazing expert at understanding the science. And I've been raving about my experience with my Sunlighten. It has really helped me in my health journey, and also using light therapy, like red light therapy, but I don't understand the science. And so I'd love for you to teach us a bit about it. What made you want to dive into learning about sauna therapy and using these kind of light therapies for healing?
I took my nutritional knowledge, had my standard cardiology career, and did that for a long time, always offering these patients more than just prescriptions. But about 10 years ago, I found a program at a university that you could call integrative cardiology. Like some people go back and get an MBA on the weekends at Harvard or whatever. I found the equivalent, but it was in my field. But the integrative science-based use of food and supplements and stress. And one of the topics was a presentation, several hours, on the science. And I stress everything I do, is odd as it is sometimes, is stimulated when I find that there's actually science that's credible, and hopefully multiple studies. So about 30 plus years ago, and I can't tell you who was the first that had the spark, but in Japan, they started applying infrared sauna. So you've got, your steam sauna at 180 degrees, a lot of health clubs. Some people have that adapter in their shower. They can make it all steamy. You've got kind of the dry Tucson, Arizona sauna with the little box in the corner. Some people have that at home. And then infrared, it's a little different. It looks like the wood box of a Arizona sauna, but in the walls are very special panels, infrared emitting panels. We have our doesn't need to be real sciencey. I mean, everybody's sitting in a room right now that probably has a light bulb that's emitting a spectrum of light. Some are purple, some are green, some are red, some are blue, yellow wavelengths that make it look white, that combination. But it turns out that there is a slice of light energy called infrared, and we can't see it. It's not a visible light. And these researchers in Japan built infrared saunas, boxes that have these panels that emit infrared energy. And they would take first they did animal studies, which was ultra cool. And the animal studies showed a beneficial response to blood vessel function, muscle function, the real basic chemistry. It turns out we actually have receptors in our cells. This is you think we really are more like plants than we think we are like plants. There actually is some very cool science that actually says we're not so different than the birch tree and the oak tree you might be seeing out a window, perhaps. But anyways, we have receptors anyways in these basic models. And then they started studying sick heart patients in Japan. And these were in academic centers, and they published data. You have high blood pressure. You use an infrared sauna. There's a Japanese word called waon, W-A-O-N. It means healing warmth. And most of the literature, anybody could put in their browser, waon, W-A-O-N therapy, and start reading about it. 15 minutes in a infrared sauna, usually about 130, 140 degrees if you give it time to heat up. Then these people would be wrapped up in towels, drink some water, and rest, because they were not really healthy athletes. They were people with blood pressure and heart damage and heart attacks. And over the course of 10 or 15 years, they showed that blood pressure responded, congestive heart failure, a really serious diagnosis, responded. Artery measures showed improvement. They actually have done some modest-sized randomized studies. Sick people got infrared saunas. Sick people just got standard therapy. There was an improvement in survival and hospitalization. And in Japan, infrared sauna is used as a first-line therapy right there with medication or surgery or whatever else you need. But God knows, until those few hours of lectures, I had never heard in any university, and I'm a professor at a university in Detroit, about any of this. And it's easy now. Read the literature. It was real, and it's been reproduced. So most of us, thank goodness, don't have bad arteries, don't have congestive heart failure. Most of us aren't mice in laboratories. But for many ways of supporting our health, I tell my patients, there's two therapies you don't know about probably, one a little pricier, one a little less pricey. They both involve using light to accentuate our health and accelerate our energy production and benefit our weight and benefit our skin and benefit our blood pressure. And the higher end one is to research and get a really good infrared sauna like Sunlight makes. I have one in my bedroom, and it's their brand called Full Spectrum. And this is science again, but it's far infrared, near infrared, and mid infrared. And each of those wavelengths, when you turn it on, it's hot. You can't see the light waves, but they're there. Each of them has a different effect, but the near infrared, which is abbreviated in the literature NIR, is really cool because that stuff really works on our muscles. And athletes, if any athletes are listening, many professional athletic teams will have various kinds of light therapy and infrared sauna, because before an athletic event, like a football game, after, before a basketball, after, recovery, pain, what do they call it, delayed onset muscle soreness, or DOMS, can all be treated. And everything I just said has science and publications. It's not, again, the woo, but just not very well known. And I got excited. So many of my patients do enjoy. There may be some other benefits. We all know, and it's the Debbie Downer talk, city water, air, plastics that wrap our burger, whether it's a Beyond Meat burger or a black bean burger, wherever you're buying, all these chemicals, these endocrine disrupting chemicals, are affecting our fertility and our thyroid and our weight. And one way to get them out, because it's really hard to keep from having any of them, of course, we want to try and create a lifestyle where we don't have plastics everywhere and exposure to air fresheners and perfumes that are all affecting our endocrine system, is infrared sauna does cause you to detoxify and eliminate these better than just gym sweating. If you can imagine, somebody did a study. I'm going to run around a gym and collect sweat droplets from people on an elliptical, and I'm going to go to an infrared sauna room and collect sweat droplets from somebody just sitting still, and there's more toxins concentrated in the sweat from an infrared sauna than there are from exercising. And of course, both are good. And there are even some gyms now that have put infrared panels in the walls of the gym, so you get double whammy. But yeah, very cool stuff for the science of WAON therapy and infrared sauna.
You mentioned that we have receptors on our cells. Is that to receive light, to receive infrared? Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, so just switching gears a little, infrared is there, but you can't see it. Then there's red light. Red light's easy. I mean, it looks like the Matrix. It's bright, and it's it's one width or one band of the full spectrum. And a prominent researcher at Harvard by the name of Michael Hamblin, Hamblin, PhD or MD, I think a PhD, has spent 30 years in many publications and textbooks that cost $700. The official name is photobiomodulation. Photo, light, bio, our biology, and we can change our biology through light, but it's often called low-level laser or red light therapy. But it turns out every one of us have, I think it's fair to say, billions and billions of mitochondria in our muscles, heart muscles, skeletal muscles particularly. They're making all that energy. If anybody's had the biology background, the ATP energy that keeps our heart strong, our muscles strong, and the rest. And there is a receptor in the system that makes energy. It's on an enzyme called cytochrome C oxidase. And that receptor will respond to red light. And when it is exposed to red light, it will accelerate this process of making energy. It also creates more nitric oxide. If you asked an athlete who knew biology or a trainer, if you created more nitric oxide that was free to circulate and help an athlete's blood vessels, and you created more efficiency in making ATP in their muscles, do you think it would benefit an athlete either in performance or recovery? And they say, my God, I'd pay a fortune for such. Turns out red light does that, proven, the science is known. And it's a little different. When you get in an infrared sauna, you're getting near infrared energy, and it's a wonderful thing, and it will activate this receptor. But you also might want to explore the field of photobiomodulation using red light. So Sunlighten has this wonderful little handheld device called Lumineer. There's some things that red light does that go beyond near infrared, and the combination is the powerhouse. I literally use a red light panel in my near infrared sauna, and I get both because I wouldn't be getting red light in my sauna alone. But for all the listeners who want to keep their skin youthful, there's an FDA approved, this is science backed by years of analysis, that it may promote collagen production, relieve aging spots, wrinkles in the skin. It's the vanity part, but who doesn't? I just have used it. Eating healthy is clearly, beauty inside out is clearly real and the key. But I'm not against using safe therapies that keep us looking a little more youthful. So in the past 12 months, I've added red light therapy for 12, 15 minutes a day. And it's not tanning, and you're not going to burn yourself. And just another add-on to health. It's fascinating, fascinating.
Yeah, I have one of the Sunlighten's Lumineers. It's a handheld device, and they have those different attachments, so you can do the blue light or the red light, and depending on whether you want to support like a joint pain or you want collagen production. It's very interesting, and I know Sunlighten gives our listeners a discount. I'm not sure what it is, but I'll find out for the listeners. And so biophotomodulation, you mentioned that it helps the body, helps the mitochondria to produce more ATP, and they've been able to prove this? Or is it that it helps the production of nitric oxide?
Actually, it does both. So if you really want to go deep, here we go. It's called uncaging nitric oxide on this enzyme. Here you got a muscle cell in your pectoral muscles because you like to do bench presses. In that muscle, there are thousands of mitochondria, and in those mitochondria, there's a pathway to make ATP energy so you can lift those weights. There's the cytochrome C oxidase, for reasons I don't understand, it actually takes and traps nitric oxide. And the nitric oxide doesn't do what it's supposed to do, which is keep your arteries youthful and prevent plaque. And it kind of clogs up the electron transport chain. So when you're exposed to red light and near-infrared light, the nitric oxide gets bumped off, and it goes and circulates and does what it's supposed to do. Suddenly, this little fly in the ointment of making ATP is removed. So you actually get both benefits, which is crazy. I mean,
That's
it's
so
crazy
cool.
to think that red light and near-infrared light can do something that is, I'm still, blown away how advanced the science is. We're talking thousands of research articles in basic science and human science. So there's even reports, and this is science or I wouldn't say it, how many people deal with Hashimoto's thyroiditis, an autoimmune disease of the thyroid. There are small series that exposing your neck using a red light device like the Luminaire converts your immune system. It's called macrophage M1 to macrophage M2, but they stop attacking your own thyroid. And there are reports of a substantial 30-40% of people no longer needing thyroid replacement after a while. Now, everybody needs to work with their healthcare team. Of course, their healthcare team won't have ever heard of this. But if you do look online, photobiomodulation, Hashimoto's, you can read about it. It's real science.
Oh, that is fascinating. Do you think it has something to do with the fact that it decreases inflammation?
It decreases inflammation by changing the activity of a kind of white blood cell, a kind of inflammatory cell called a macrophage. Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Because I know that in the 3-in-1, the Sunlighten, not the handheld, but the big Sunlighten, sauna that has the near, mid, and far infrared, that is incredibly anti-inflammatory to be in, that people notice decreases in pain and inflammation and joint pain. And then I've been told the Luminaire, because I don't have joint pain, but I've been told the Luminaire has been really helpful for people with joint pain, even when it's like rheumatoid arthritis, where there's an autoimmune component. And you've seen the science to back this up.
It probably is multiple pathways that lead people with fibromyalgia and more defined autoimmune conditions, like you mentioned, to respond to full spectrum infrared sauna, because it probably is detoxification. Some will lose weight, which may help. And then finally, this nitric oxide, ATP energy, something like fibromyalgia, some people believe strongly is a mitochondrial energy deficit problem. So if you can safely, non-invasively, and frankly rather cost-effectively deal with it, then you might well just power up and get rid of the pain.
Right. Oh, I love it. And you mentioned that saunas help with weight loss. I've used the sauna to help with detoxification because I was having problems with weight loss when it came to detoxification. My liver would get all really pissed off. I switched to a plant-based diet, and everything's working a lot better now that I'm doing that and doing the sauna. What can you share with us about, from the standpoint of heart health, cardiovascular health, and how saunas help with that? How does the sauna, the sauna therapy, this heat therapy, help us with detoxification and weight loss?
Yes, well, it's actually a very efficient way. It's interesting. There's some data that cold therapy is a very efficient way to accelerate your weight loss. So I have adopted this crazy habit I hate, that after a workout, I jump in the shower, and at least part of it, I douse myself in cold water. It does wake you up like no other. I hate everything about it because there's nothing more comforting than a hot shower, but a cold shower. And on the flip side, the efficiency of burning calories in an infrared sauna is as high as many ellipticals and treadmills, and it might be roughly 5, 6, 700 calories an hour.
Mm-hmm.
So, it doesn't replace, number one, if you're a good athlete and you can really get good workouts, please do it. There's all kinds of cardiovascular benefits. Some people have reasons that they can't really get that high level workout, and many people do both. They'll get the CrossFit or the HIIT or the hot yoga or whatever it is, and then they'll add in some sauna on top of it. So it can be very helpful with the, calories in, calories out, the calorie out part of weight loss. I had, unfortunately, at a medical conference, the misfortune of breaking a foot on an escalator 2 months ago.
Oof.
So I've had to give up. It's recovering very well, but I've had to give up, treadmill, elliptical, concept 2 rower, and all the things I like to do. Yoga. So I'm spending more time in infrared sauna and been able to maintain my weight. I mean, a lot of upper body work and such. I've shifted, but just a personal example where, add that in. So, and it may be too, there's this theory, this gets a little woo. We really are exposed to a lot of garbage, pesticides, herbicides, these endocrine disrupting chemicals, and a lot of them do get they're fat soluble chemicals, particularly PCBs and DDT, and these things are unfortunately highly concentrated in fish. So fish eaters are much more exposed to these things. But that you may need to get rid and reduce your burden of some of these chemicals to really lose weight, because there's like this battle. If I keep my fat, I dilute these chemicals and they're less toxic to my physiology. And if I lose weight and they're all released in the bloodstream, I may feel bad, kind of like the keto flu or the kind of ill feeling people get the first couple of days of some kind of detox. So sweating them out is a real efficient way in a sauna to reduce your burden and accelerate weight loss. Now, everything I just said is a little blurry in terms of do we absolutely know, but that is a strong theory that people feel is reflects life in 2019, 2020.
And it's been my experience too. I kept hitting a wall. Every time I'd lose a few pounds, I'd get really overtoxic and my liver would inflame. I went for ultrasounds and blood work, and it was sure enough, my liver was really pissed. And my naturopath didn't know what was going on, was trying to throw some supplements at me to support the liver. But I had to basically stop weight loss and then wait for it to calm down, then start again. I was just sick of it. And so finally my naturopath was like, you really should get a sauna. And that's why I dived into studying all the different types of saunas, and I came across Sunlight and Sauna and discovered that was my favorite out of all the other companies. Really low EMF, non-toxic. And then when I started using it, it was like a light bulb went off inside me.
Wow.
It was the total difference. I feel happier when I use it. I get better sleep. I don't have my inflamed liver anymore. The weight loss has been consistent. So I've become this raving fan about Sunlighten. But again, I didn't understand the deep science behind it. And so I love that you're saying that the receptors in our body, those cells have receptors for light. And I've heard from other people that light is like a nutrient, and we are starving our body because of modern day society. We're actually starving from the full spectrum that we need. So it's like we're nutrient deficient, and the nutrient's light.
Yeah, so that circles back to something I said a while about how similar we are to plants, which is a novel idea. But of course, plants can take light and use them to stimulate the production of energy. It powers them. They have chlorophyll. There is a report in 2014, and I wrote a little blog about it back then. It was so interesting. It made some headlines. It wasn't a human study, but it was a mammal study, and we do not think that we can be out in the sun and create energy out of that process. We're not plants, but that did occur in mammalian cells, and there may be a whole spectrum of, we know light helps you make vitamin D, which is an important health supporting, some people say hormone or vitamin. There is some data you can make more nitric oxide by being in the sun, and people that live in lower portions of the United States have lower blood pressure than people who live in northern portions, and it all correlates how many hours a day there's sunshine. But whether we actually can energize and feel better, of course, intuition says, take a vacation in the sun and, it feels great. And it may be partly that we have still pathways that aren't completely understood, and these cytochrome C oxidase pathways may indeed be part of it. So it's very cool. And, as I say, one of the easiest health plays is to get more light or get more red light with dedicated products. These used to be extremely expensive. You'd have to spend $10,000 to $30,000 to go to a health spa or a dermatology office. But it's much different now for, way under $1,000. You got a great system.
Yeah, I really like the Lumineer and all that you can do with it, with all the different attachments. Like you said, you can do the anti-aging. There's an attachment specifically for helping skin with acne and healing the skin. But then, and I really geek out on the helping people with pain and decreasing pain and supporting healthy tissue. So there's so many different benefits to making sure we're exposed to light, either getting out in the sun or getting in a sunlight and sauna, but being able to expose ourselves to the different and full, as much as you can, full spectrum of light. Now, I know we're under a time constraint, and I definitely want to make sure I get to the listeners' questions, because I posted in the Learn True Health Facebook group some questions.
Let me just, before we leave sauna, let me just shout out three. I told everybody I already like science, so I'm going to give three very non-scientific tips here.
Okay, great.
But the first one's okay. I do my meditation, which isn't a absolutely regular. I do it in the infrared sauna. I call it saunitation. I'm already isolated. I'm already cleansing physiologically my body. Why not cleanse some of the stress? So I encourage people. That's just a perfect place to do that. That's number one. Number two, I actually do take a big handful of organic chlorella about half an hour before I get in the sauna, because I want to be a plant. And I don't know for sure if that works, but my blood level of chlorophyll is extremely high from taking 25 or 30 little tablets like anybody can buy of high quality chlorella. And it just feels good. And the third one, and please don't do this if you're not like really healthy and know your status. There's sort of this strategy. Go do a HIIT workout for 10, 15 minutes after you've taken a little handful of niacin, a B vitamin that makes you sweat and turn red, and you might feel very poorly on it, so be careful, but it's over the counter. So take your niacin, do your workout, pop in a sauna. You want to have a detoxifying sweat, you will have a detoxifying sweat. So
oh, very cool. Interesting. So you're inducing the niacin flush. Is that like opening up capillaries around the surface of the skin?
It's exactly where you're feeling on the surface of the skin. Clearly, if you're not healthy, if you've had a bad reaction to niacin, it's not a medical therapy, and niacin is an over-the-counter vitamin. So I don't think I've completely violated my Hippocratic oath, and I've done it 1,000 times, and so far still alive and kicking. But it's an interesting little play.
I'm going to have to try that. I definitely have some niacin here on the shelf. I'm going to have to try that for sure. I usually get the no flush niacin, but to want to do it on purpose, to open up all the blood flow to the surface to increase the sweating and detoxification. That sounds like a really fun experiment. I'm kind of like, you hear about this term biohacker. I love experimenting on myself in a safe way, try it out. And I feel like my listeners do the same. They love trying different things, especially when they learn from great guests like you, and seeing how it works for them. I have two more things to add to your routine, or one more thing for you to add to the routine, is trying a magnesium soak while you're in the sauna. And I'll make sure I send you some information on it, but it's transdermal. It's a liquid, and you just put a few cups of water with a foot basin while you're in the sauna, and you absorb a ton of magnesium. And so a lot of my listeners, including myself, love doing that in the sauna as well. And that also opens up the blood flow. And then my favorite, and I definitely encourage you to try it out, my favorite chlorella brand, I've tried a bunch of them, and I found that Energy Bits, they make one called...
That's what I just swallowed.
Yes! Recovery Bits. My favorite, because it tastes amazing. All the other ones kind of taste fishy to me or stale, and Energy Bits has been consistent with their quality and their testing. I've had Catherine Arnston, the creator of Energy Bits, on the show many times. And so, we're on the same page. I'm so excited to introduce you to the magnesium soak. I'll make sure I send you some information because I know that you'll really enjoy adding that to your sauna routine and seeing how you feel about it. So let me get to the listener questions because I know that we're under time constraint and I want to respect your time. Daniela, first of all, says that she's the one that said your podcast is absolutely amazing. So I want to shout out to Daniela. She was really looking forward to hearing our interview. Naomi has a really interesting one. Her dad had a valve replacement surgery recently because of a narrow valve, and the doctor said it was congenital, but none of his symptoms started till he was 70. And they're like, well, you were born with it. But none of his symptoms started till he's 70, and now they're seeing narrowing of the arteries, of course, with that can be, as you and I know, corrected with wonderful whole food plant-based diet with no oil. What do you say to that when doctors say well, that's just congenital, you were born with it, but the disease never occurred until they were much later in life?
Go back to Daniela. Thank you, Daniela, for listening. Heart Doc VIP. Okay, I just wanted to say thank you to her because that was kind of you. But to go to this question, there is the number one most common birth condition, congenital heart condition, is actually what her father had. The last valve of the heart, when the heart pumps hard to get all the blood out to the body, it goes through a valve called the aortic valve that looks like a Mercedes-Benz or a peace sign, 3 little parts. They open, they shut. 1% of people are born where there's 2 pieces, not 3. It's called a bicuspid aortic valve. It looks like your rear end. It has 2 pieces, not 3, but we don't call it a tush valve. It's a bicuspid valve. Now you can now call it a tush valve. And because it's abnormal, 100,000 heartbeats a day, by the time you're 40, 45, 50, 55, there's some scarring, some calcification, and the valve may no longer open enough, so you start to get short of breath, tighten the chest, dizzy, and at that point you may need something done about it. There's nothing you can do about being born with it. It's common. You might ask a doctor. There is some family history. So your listener might ask her doctor, are you sure there's no murmur there when you listen to my heart with the stethoscope? But there's really no absolute necessity to make the diagnosis early. There, just to finish it up, occasionally with that valve, right above the heart is called your aorta. The aorta may be a little enlarged. That's a little more important of a finding earlier in life. You shouldn't probably be snapping, catching 300-pound lifts in CrossFit if you knew your aorta was enlarged. So it might be worth pursuing it with what we call an ultrasound of the heart or echocardiogram if there really was any question your doctor thought they heard something or there really is a strong family history. I'll give you one last little tip because your listeners deserve the best of the best. There is a class of antibiotics. I'm totally shifting gears, but I'm coming back to your listener's question, that are called fluoroquinolones, but you might know them by Cipro, ciprofloxacin, Levaquin, levofloxacin. These are actually the most commonly prescribed oral and IV antibiotics in the United States. It is now apparent, after 30 years of using them, that they weaken our collagen. They cause rupture of it. Your Achilles can get inflamed or rupture after a 7 to 10 day course. But now, in the last 3-4 years, your aorta, the most important blood vessel in the body, can get weakened and damaged after just a week or 10 days on these antibiotics. And very recently, even heart valves. All of these structures are made of collagen. These antibiotics have, it took years to identify. It's not common, but when you talk about tens of millions of prescriptions, if it's only 1% or 1.5% of people, it's still a lot of people, which is why somebody like this father, anybody with an enlarged aorta should now know that there's FDA warnings about maybe not using this class of antibiotics that are used for prostate and urinary and bronchitis in the hospital and in the office. I'll say this, I was just on the doctor's show being interviewed on this topic because it is really important and hot. And Drew Ardone, the plastic surgeon with the white hair, wonderful guy, said, I'm on Levaquin right now for my prostate, and this is scaring me. And it is being recommended that you ask your doctor to maybe shift antibiotics to another one. So circling back to your questioner, it's 1% of people born with an abnormal valve. It might also cause their aorta to be enlarged. If you knew your aorta was enlarged, you do not want to take these class of antibiotics. And even if your aorta isn't enlarged, for the sake of your Achilles tendon and other structures, you still might want to ask, can I have a penicillin, a sulfa, older antibiotic like a macrobid? So we
Mm.
learned, these drugs have been out for decades. It's interesting. It's not the only drug. We've learned new things about old drugs that are, frankly, changing practice and fairly scary.
Yeah.
Next question. Next
Thank you so
question.
much for warning us. Kelly asks, are there any recommendations he has for children who are born with heart conditions such as ASD, PFO, etc.?
These are interesting questions because, again, birth defects are rarely, the common questions that are asked. I'm certainly welcome to have them. I mean, ASD, so the second most common birth defect after the valve is a little hole in the heart called a PFO, patent foramen-ovale, usually very innocent. And then there's a larger hole called the ASD, atrial septal defect. And then there are, more complex where it might be apparent before birth or at birth that this is a child that has serious problems, blue babies and developmental problems. But, just like that listener's father, it took decades. There are people that have had this hole in their heart for 20, 30, 40 years, and then they begin to get shorter breath, or then they begin to get fatigued. So there isn't a diet, there isn't a lifestyle, there isn't a sauna treatment for everything in life. You just need, at that point, good medical care, and sometimes ultimately a procedure that more and more is not surgery. More and more it's some kind of procedure where they don't have to crack your chest open. But people should be much more concerned about their arteries getting clogged and the risk of heart attack and stroke, because the frequency of that from age 35, 40, 45 and up is, 1,000 times more of a concern than finding out unexpectedly at age 70 you've got a valve or a hole in your heart issue. They're all important.
Right, that we can prevent heart disease with a whole food plant-based diet with no processed foods would be much better for most of the population. And then there's that small percentage that has a birth defect, but could still, even with a birth defect, couldn't we still optimize our heart health with a really good heart health diet?
Yeah, always. And there's an insane number of reasons to, as early as you can in life, learn the clues. Don't smoke, stay thin, get fitness, get sleep, manage stress, eat more fruits and vegetables, whole grains and legumes, and anybody around you does. Be the champion of whole, real foods from plant sources. Don't smoke. Maybe I said it twice. It deserves to be said twice.
Don't vape.
Because if nothing happens during your life, you've just probably added a dozen plus years of good health and reduced risk of diabetes, cancer, brain disease, and heart disease. If something comes up in your life, you're showing up, in the best shape possible. So yes, it's we buy life insurance, we wear seatbelts, we wear bicycle helmets. We're into the mode of taking certain precautions, even though they're relatively unlikely, whereas heart disease is incredibly likely, and we neither look for it nor do we really work very hard to prevent it.
My dad died of heart disease. My mom died of cancer. And that's one of the biggest reasons why I do this show. So I can't save my parents. I don't have a time machine, but I can help my listeners save theirs and save themselves. And we can prevent and reverse disease and add years to our life with all the things you've talked about. We're on a roll. Heidi says, I have a question as well. My husband has a rare genetic heart condition called ARVC. His arteries are perfectly healthy, but it's electrical part of the heart that's not. Do you have any advice for anyone with this condition?
Yeah, again, an important but very unusual birth abnormality of the right side of your heart. It just doesn't form normally, and it makes people prone to serious fast heartbeats that could cause you to black out or worse. And you work with certain cardiologists called electrical cardiologists, and sometimes you need that fancy pacemaker called a defibrillator, and they can be life-saving for certain people. And same comment, show up to that challenge in life. Why is that gentleman's arteries clean? And that's a very complex question of genetics and lifestyle and fitness and all. But if you start eating plant-based at age 18, as I had the good fortune by luck to do, you probably are going to show up for that procedure with your arteries clean. And I know at age 60, mine are squeaky clean. There's ways to get a quick CAT scan and confirm that, and they are. So, it's always best. the best protection is stay out of the hospital on as few medicines as you can with as few doctor procedures as you can. Number 3 cause of death in the United States is medical procedures and medications that go wrong. Number 3 cause of death after heart disease and cancer. So, the best plan is not need to be there. And I run from hospitals, even though I am part of them, and obviously I'm on staff with them. But in terms of my own health, I do not trust what goes on in hospitals.
Thank you. I love this. We have to walk that fine line of understanding when we want to go to allopathic medicine and when we don't. This show obviously celebrates all the times we don't want to go to allopathic medicine, but allopathic medicine has its place. And if my heart was beating to the point where I was blacking out, I'd really want to see a good electrical cardiologist. Is that what it's called?
Yes.
I definitely want to go see a really good one. But for prevention and for optimizing our health, then we can do it through diet. I interviewed Dr. Esselstyn, and he has seen people with even 4 blockages in the heart reverse it within months of going on a whole food plant-based diet, as you, I'm sure, have seen and know. So it's just amazing what the body can do when we give it the nutrition it needs. Teresa asks, she says, many of the autoimmune neurodisease experts insist on good fats in the diet, added fats like ghee, tallow, lard, and coconut oils, mostly for cooking and to drizzle over vegetables for absorption. I personally have trouble breaking down fats and proteins and have had to take digestive enzymes with every meal. Is it really necessary to add all that extra fat for MS, ALS, and even Hashimoto's? I followed Dr. John McDougall for years and felt great, but that was before autoimmunity. So she then developed an autoimmune condition. And she says, also, the experts talk about organ meats for autoimmunity. What could replace the nutrient density in a plant-based diet? So she doesn't want to have to eat organ meats and all this processed fat, but she wants to heal her body. Do you have any advice for her?
Yeah, and I think it gets to just a fundamental question. Where do you get your advice? Do they have any conflicts in the advice they're giving? And are they really trained to give advice? Because, every trainer, every dietitian, at least a dietitian has some formal training if they're an RD, every health coach can get a blog and a YouTube and give advice. Go find me data that you need to eat organ meats to heal neurologic or autoimmune disease. And let's talk about what randomized studies are out there. And not everything in the world that's great has to be plant-based, although there's so many reasons to talk about whole food plant-based for the environment, for animal rights and animal cruelty and suffering, and for the gigantic database that it is the best plan to preserve and protect your health in general and for both brain and autoimmune diseases. I spent the weekend with Dr. Terry Walls, WHLS, and many people will know she's a medical doctor with a breakout book called The Walls Protocol a couple of years ago. She's redoing it right now. And she had disabling multiple sclerosis. She was an internist in University in Iowa at the VA and kind of created her own plan of hyper-nourishment with 10 servings a day of organic leafy greens and smoothies and salads and mushrooms and onions and garlic and a few servings of animal foods during the week, far less than the typical paleo diet. Lots of omega-3 rich foods. And I was asking her about, and she, recovered her own health. She's helped so many people recover. I mean, I'm not going to argue with her. She's walking and riding her bike, and she was in a wheelchair. I'm going to tell her diet is other than optimal. It worked out optimally for her and a lot of other people. There's a similar plan that is all plant-based that's taught by a physician in Houston, Brooke Goldner, Goldner, in a book called Goodbye Lupus or Goodbye Autoimmune Disease, her new book. So you can do it super clean, whole food, plant-based, super clean, almost plant-based, as Dr. Walls teaches. But it's not all that gook you talked about. And what I love about particularly Dr. Walls right now, she took her own personal health crisis and recovery, her broad experience teaching other people in the VA and other medical systems at the University of Iowa. And now she's actually doing prospective, randomized, published studies. You can't jack with somebody who's done that kind of science. And I'll say no disrespect, but it kind of is disrespect. Show me Dr. David Perlmutter's prospective peer-reviewed studies, or Dr. Mark Hyman's, or Dr. Bill Davis. I mean, these are the giants of some of this weird stuff. I mean, bone marrow and bone broth. I know it's trendy, but let's talk about where have we followed the typical scientific path of you got a hypothesis, you arrange a study, you do it, you publish it. Dr. Walser, credit has. So, my brain favorites are two neurologists by the name of Sherzai, Sherzai, which is Dean and Ayesha Sherzai, academic neurologist in Long Beach and Loma Linda, with a book called The Alzheimer's Solution. And I would follow their program for brain and neurological health in that book.
Thank you so much. That was great. I love the books that you let us know about, because those are going to be great guests for the show. I'm definitely going to ask them all to be on the show, and those will be great resources for the listeners as well. It has been such a pleasure having you on the show. I know time just flies, and I know you've got to go. Before you do, is there any advice that you'd like to leave the listeners with, or homework that you'd like to leave the listeners with?
That's an interesting question, homework, because actually it's exactly the expression I use with my patients. Here's your homework, and I can't do this all for you, and I can guide you to people I believe, in my opinion, are credible, and we should spend time. I mean, everybody should watch Forks Over Knives on Netflix, or if there's anybody left that has a DVD player, it's still available. I give my patients the option of take a DVD home or watch it on Netflix. If you want to upgrade that, you might watch What the Health from 2017, and very soon you'll be able to watch Game Changers.
Yes.
A new movie that was in the theaters and will be released on iTunes very soon. I mean, that's, I've seen all those movies. There are a lot of health movies that I don't think represent fairly, but certainly Forks Over Knives, which is Dr. Caldwell's assistant, Dr. Colin Campbell, I would certainly say are fair. Other homework. I'll give other homework. Let's see. Get familiar with pubmed.gov. It can be a slippery slope, but that's the National Library of Medicine and 30 million scientific articles. You can't get the full article on every one, but you can on a lot. And if you don't believe me on red light therapy, photobiomodulation, and Hashimoto's, that's where you go. You go there, and it's a little tough sometimes to read the scientific articles, but that's a good habit. Now, I mean, I will say also put in bone broth and health. That's where you want to look. You'll find nothing. Actually, you'll find one article that says it's dangerous and toxic in terms of lead levels in bone broth from causing bones that you're cooking to release some of the stored lead that is in them. But, these kind of habits is something, if you really want to get as credible as you can, you might, learn simple skills to do.
Oh, I love it. Yes, PubMed. Let's advocate for ourselves by looking into the science. Absolutely. I went to the movie theaters and saw the Game Changers in the movies. I went with actually one of our listeners who's a friend of mine, Naomi. Big shout out to her. And the whole time we kept looking at each other going, we have to get, this person to watch this. Oh my gosh, we got to get our parents to watch this. We can't believe it. I am so excited that October 1st, when it comes out on iTunes, I'm going to buy the digital copy and get as many of my friends and family to watch it. And I really love that it just shows, it blows this idea that real men eat meat totally out of the ballpark. And it shows that if you want to have really great sexual health, and great muscle, and great strength and endurance and all that, men and women get it from a whole food plant-based diet. That's such a cool, and it is really a game changer. Dr. Joel Kahn, it has been such a pleasure having you on the show today. You are welcome back anytime you want to come share with our listeners. It was a true pleasure to have you today.
Well, it is Mutual Fan Club, Mutual Seattle Fan Club, and and I look forward to it. And I'd be happy to help you contact any of those other people if you want to get them on, because I think your listenership would love them.
Awesome. That sounds great. Thank you. Hello, true health seeker. Have you ever thought about becoming a health coach? Do you love learning about nutrition and how we can shift our lifestyle and our diet so that we can gain optimal health and happiness and longevity? Do you love helping your friends and family to solve their health problems and to figure out what they can do to eat healthier? Are you interested in becoming someone who can grow their own business, support people in their success? Do you love helping people? you might be the perfect candidate to become a health coach. I highly recommend checking out the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. I just spent the last year in their health coaching certification program, and it really blew me away. It was so amazing. I learned over 100 dietary theories. I learned all about nutrition, but from a standpoint of how we can help people to shift their life and shift their lifestyle to gain true holistic health. I definitely recommend you check them out. You can Google Institute for Integrative Nutrition, or IIN, and give them a call, or you can go to learntruehealth.com/coach, and you can receive a free module of their training to check it out and see if it's something that you'd be interested in. Be sure to mention my name, Ashley James, and the Learn True Health podcast, because I made a deal with them that they will give you the best price possible. I highly recommend checking it out. It really changed my life to be in their program, and I'm such a big advocate that I wanted to spread this information. We need more health coaches. In fact, health coaching is the largest growing career right now in the health field. So many health coaches are getting in and helping people, because you can work in chiropractic offices, doctors' offices, you can work in hospitals, you can work online through Skype and help people around the world. You can become an author, you can go into the school system and help your local schools shift their programs to help children be healthier. You can go into senior centers and help them to shift their diet and lifestyle to best support them in their success and their health goals. There's so many different available options for you when you become a certified health coach. So check out IIN, check out the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, mention my name, get the best deal, give them a call, and they'll give you lots of free information and help you to see if this is the right move for you. Classes are starting soon. The next round of classes are starting at the end of the month. So you're going to want to call them now and check it out. And if you know anyone in your life who would be an amazing coach, please tell them about it. Being a health coach is so rewarding, and you get to help so many people.